I caught my girlfriend cheating on me with my close friend, handed him over to the police and cut off all contacts with her.
My wife Rachel and I grew up in a rather large town with a population of about 30,000 people.
We knew each other from an early age, about 6 years old. We were practically inseparable. At the age of 16, we started dating. When we turned 18, we moved to work in a city located just a few hours' drive from our hometown. At the age of 20, we got married and bought our first house. At the age of 22, she got pregnant with a boy, and then there was a disaster. About 5 weeks before she had to go on a maternity leave, a large scaffolding collapsed and crushed her.
I was told that she and our child died instantly.
2 of her colleagues also suffered in this unfortunate case. One remained paralyzed, the other lost a leg that had to be amputated.
The fact is that the company she worked for the sake of saving money, decided to continue using the old scaffolding, which had long been considered unsafe, instead of replacing them. I still can't forgive those managers who made this decision,
because they deprived me of the love of my entire life and killed our unborn child. Shortly after that, I was told that I had a choice, how to deal with what the company called compensation, and I called it bloody money. They wanted to settle the case in a non-court order to avoid a lawsuit.
I, on the contrary, was eager for justice. Fortunately, thanks to the widespread coverage of this event in the press and the involvement of several politicians, the case was quickly settled in court in about 3 years, as a result of which the compensation for all parties turned out
to be almost 10 times higher than these bastards initially offered. The company was fined for numerous violations of the safety and labor safety standards. A number of managers were fired, some ended up in prison, and so on.
At this time, I continued to work in a telecommunications company.
My mother, bless her soul, moved to me to help while all this was happening. I think I wouldn't have made it if she hadn't been so involved. At about this time, I was offered a raise, but it meant frequent trips around the state.
I asked for an office in the branch of my hometown because I wanted not only to do business all over the state, but also to work in my hometown, where there was no representative of the company.
They agreed. A few months later, everything calmed down.
I spent 1-2 weeks in the city office, 1 week in my hometown, and 1-2 weeks visiting other parts of the state.
A year later, I decided to buy a house in my hometown so that I would not stop at my parents' every time I returned home, and so that I could come and go whenever I wanted.
This is important for the rest of the story. 4 years have passed.
I just returned from one of the troops on Friday and was doing business in the office when Harry, the managing director of the branch, entered the office. We grew up together, but went to different schools, and after my return, we became close friends.
He asked how I was doing, then offered to come to a party at his house, which he arranged in the evening.
It was an unexpected invitation, but I agreed. I felt that I needed to have a drink with my friends. That's where Harry introduced me to Catherine.
She was a new employee in the branch, where the office of my hometown was located, and had just met the team.
It was a new city for her. We immediately found a common language. No matter how banal it may sound, it turned out that Catherine was not in front of me, but Rachel, who had died. I will not tire you with unnecessary details, but
after 2 years of relationship, we decided to take the next step, and she moved to my house in my hometown. Until that moment, everything was going very well.
Catherine got along with my parents. Rachel's parents also approved of her, and were happy that someone could make me as happy as Rachel. Everything was going great for almost a year, until something
started to change. Video call sessions suddenly became shorter. The neighbors told me that the car that Harry's car looked like was often seen parked in the alley of my house. When I was leaving, things appeared in the closet that did not belong to me. Everything indicated that she was cheating, but she assured that everything was fine.
She said that Harry sometimes comes to discuss work and so on, but never stayed. Overnight, I wrote it down on my paranoia and continued to live as if nothing had happened, but still felt that something was wrong. About 6 months later, I found out that she was cheating. I had just signed a fairly large contract with a new company, and the negotiations ended earlier than I expected. Instead of staying there for a few more days, I decided to pay for them. Early flight home and surprise everyone.
After a few hours, I arrived in my hometown and drove into the alley behind the house to go into the house unnoticed and surprise Catherine. But part of me was still eager to find out if it was the same mysterious car. And indeed, there was a car and blocked the back entrance. I was instantly confused, thinking that it was just an innocent neighbor who parked until he realized that
it was really Harry's car.
parking behind his car. I went out and thought how strange it was that he was here so late. She claimed that he always leaves early.
Coming to the back of the house, I saw what my heart went to my heels.
I froze. Time stopped. In the kitchen, there was my close friend who was doing intimacy with my girlfriend on my kitchen counter.
I didn't know what to do. Thousands of questions were spinning in my head. Was it real or was I sleeping? Why were they doing this in my
house?
Feeling broken, I turned around and left without being noticed.
I got into the car and sat there. It seemed forever.
I cried very much. But sadness quickly turned into anger. The same anger that I felt towards those who were responsible for Rachel's death.
And I wanted to hurt them very much.
As a pacifist, I do not believe in violence. Then I realized that I would punish them in another way, destroying their lives. I drove back down the alley, quite far from my entrance, to still see Harry's car, and then returned to the gate from where I could see the house and called her.
They were still doing it when the phone rang.
They both looked at the screen and looked at each other when they saw my name.
I saw that she was thinking whether to answer or not. She just didn't pick up the phone. After a few moments, they took over again, and I dialed her number again. This time she answered. As soon as she picked up the phone, I completed the call
and headed back to my car.
Soon after that, she called me back. She asked why I was calling so late, and I told her that I would be home in 10 minutes and didn't want to scare her with my arrival. She was obviously shocked and pretended to be glad that I was coming back. The conversation ended quickly after she said she would go change. Moments later, Harry flew out the back door, half dressed, jumped into his car and sped off like he was being chased. I smiled, knowing they were both terrified of being caught.
That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat down in my office and started working on a plan.
I wasn't going to hurt them physically. I was raised a pacifist.
But I would destroy their lives. I knew Harry used recreational drugs, not hardcore, but still illegal. I'd seen it once at his place and pretended not to notice. Now, I contacted some shady clients and built up enough of a stash for what I was planning. A month later, I invited friends to a barbecue, including Harry.
I made sure he drank enough, then let him crash at my place. In the early morning,
I planted the drugs and some of my personal belongings in his car, including a stash hidden under the spare tire.
I also slipped some items into his house, since he was too drunk to notice. A few days later, I faked a break-in at my house,
smashed the kitchen door window, left it wide open, then flew out for a fake business trip.
Soon I had missed calls from my MOM, the police, and Catherine.
I told them I'd come back in a week, asked Catherine to stay with my parents, and arranged for security cameras to be installed. When I returned, I played innocent. I reported the robbery, acted shocked, and had the security rep explain the new cameras. Then Catherine asked the magic question, how to pause recording for privacy.
Bingo.
The rep showed us how. I then privately asked him to enable email notifications if anyone turned off the cameras. Meanwhile, I met with a lawyer. I made sure Catherine had zero legal claim to my house or money. We weren't married officially. She didn't pay bills. The lawyer confirmed I was safe.
Just in case, we drafted airtight paperwork.
Soon, I was offered a promotion back to the city stable job. No more travel.
It was perfect. I needed 6 weeks to finalize everything back in my hometown. I asked Harry to approve Catherine's vacation a week at a tropical resort, all paid, with 2 friends.
He was excited, thought I was planning to propose. I played along. Catherine was thrilled when I told her. I also told her I'd be away the week before her flight, which I wouldn't. I went on a secret 2-week vacation, for a way, to prep
for the final blow. 2 weeks later, I came back.
Drove past my house. Harry's car was there.
I parked nearby and checked the cameras. They were sleeping in my bed.
I called the police, reported suspicious activity. A man sitting in a car,
exchanging things with others, peeking into yards, possibly dealing.
I gave Harry's car description and plates. Then I called Catherine and said I'd be home in 10 minutes.
A few seconds later, Harry bolted out the back, half dressed again, just like the first time, and just as he sped off, the police arrived and chased him.
Perfect. I arrived, greeted Catherine, acted normal. That night, she flew off with her friends. Once she was gone, I packed her stuff.
I had movers ready to take her things to a rented storage unit. The police called. They'd found stolen property in Harry's car. Some of my missing items. I confirmed them.
Harry was arrested, disgraced, fired, and became the talk of the town.
My bosses officially apologized. I told my parents and Rachel's parents.
They were sad I hadn't told them earlier, but proud I stayed classy sort of. On Friday, I packed
Up and moved.
Before leaving, I visited Becky, Rachel's childhood friend, the only one who knew the plan. I gave her a big envelope, all the proof of cheating, a lawyer's letter banning Catherine from contacting me, and instructions to retrieve her belongings. 2 days later, Catherine returned.
The house was empty.
A for rent sign was up. My parents slammed the door on her. Becky handed her the package. Catherine freaked out, sent me dozens of angry texts accusing me of framing Harry. But she never showed up in person. What happened after? Harry served a short sentence.
There was enough real evidence at his home. I just gave police a reason to investigate. Catherine,
Her reputation in town was ruined.
I heard she moved to another state. Was it legal? Yes.
Was it cruel? Maybe. But I wanted her to feel how it is to have your world collapse.
And that's it. What do you think?
Was it too far or just right? Let me know in the comments and don't forget to watch our next story.